Okay. So this is where your total addressable market is going to be a critical part of the thought exercise that you're going to do to show investors that you are competent and formidable enough to be able to think through your startup opportunity to give that investor confidence. Now, let me just say, people get it wrong all the time. They completely get it wrong all the time. And but we're not looking for you to get it right. We're looking for how you do it. What is the process? So that's the reason investors don't like top down. Oh, the cybersecurity market is, 1 trillion. And if we capture 1% of that, we're going to be, gajillionaires, et cetera, et cetera. Anybody can do that. Right. So if you're actually able to go and say, all right, there are X amount of small businesses and this percentage uses the cloud and they have this many employees and we plan on selling our solution for $20 a month. And so if you take this and you times it by that and we roll it out, we think that we can capture this amount of market type thing. And here's how we're going to do it. And we're going to project the revenue and what we're going to do. So now here, let me give you some advice. Here's the exercise that I do. All right. I take one user and I calculate out, I go, all right, what am I going to do to get that one user? And how fast do I think get the user and how much money are they going to make me? Right. So whether it's annual revenue type thing, and I project it out, then I take 10 and I go, okay, so how much do I need to get 10 users? And then I grow it by 10% a week. Now, this is just an exercise to see if you can get the exponential traction that will attract investors. Now, this is just something that I do, and I do this as an exercise because if you're growing 10% a week, that's hockey stick growth month over month. That's exponential. So what happens is I go, okay, I got 10 users. Next week, I'm going to add 10%. I'm going to have 11 users. All right. And then I'm going to have 12.1 users, et cetera, et cetera. And I'm going to hockey stick that growth up and I'm going to see where my revenue lands. And so I go out and I tell my investors, look, I'm going to go slow. I'm going to start with 10 users, but based on this, by year 5, we're doing $100 million a year in revenue. I have to prove to you that I can maintain this traction. And if I don't hit that traction metric goal, then I'm doing something wrong. My investment thesis, my assumptions are being invalidated. I need to change it. So I'm going to report to you every week. And I got a little sticky on my laptop that says 10% growth. And that's all I'm going to worry about. I'm going to be obsessed with solving the problems for users and making sure that I get that 10% growth, which means that I'm going to do it without spending on Google ads or, burning through money. I'm going to do that by making my product so great that naturally 10% growth, 10% of my market is referring each other and they keep referring that way. Okay. This is the reason people use the NPS, Net Promoter Score, evaluation, look it up to understand whether you built a product that's going to be viral and grow without you having to spend the cash on it. So back to your question, do a total addressable market analysis, take the cost of what you think you can make per user, and then start extrapolating out your growth and see if it's even feasible. And you'll find very quickly the gaps in your projections. This happens to me all the time. I'm like, oh crap, I'm going to have to grow. How am I actually going to go and grow this type thing without artificially inflating it? What feature do they need, et cetera? And it pushes me to develop a product that I know is going to grow without having to raise $1 million for marketing and sales. We don't like that. This is the reason SaaS companies are scary, because if SaaS companies need salespeople and the sales cycles for big companies. So Dano, you're in this territory, right? And that's where I've talked to SaaS plays and I'm like, how long is your sales cycle? And they're like, well, it takes 6 months. So you're going to employ salespeople for 6 months before you make any money. That's scary. When I was at Y Combinator, they gave me the best piece of advice, changed my startup to the point where it was acquired a year later. They said, how do you get auto registration? So people just sign themselves up, so you don't have to start spending on salespeople. So all the way back to, Joe, take total addressable market, do your calculations, and come up with an assumption. We think we can grow by 10% per week, starting off with this amount of users, and here's where we are. Investors love it when you can do that math and you can show us that you've actually thought this through, because as the CEO, Joe, you're the CEO, right?
We haven't established titles.
Okay, so I'm going to just assume you're going to be the CEO since you're here. CEOs have two jobs: make sure the company doesn't run out of money, and make sure the company doesn't run out of money, right? And that's the reason you have to be fanatical about your financials. And your financials are going to drive the way that you build the product and different things like that, because your financials don't lie. They're going to tell you whether you're doing it right or not. And I don't mean financials in terms of dollars and cents necessarily. Could be freemium users or different people, something, assets under management, or, different things like that, that's slowly growing or growing at a rate. Slowly growing means you've been validated, or you're growing at a rate exponentially that now an investor can look at your numbers and say, if I chunk in $500,000 and they execute against their plan, by year X, it'll be break even. They'll be ramen profitable. And then we can chunk in another tranche of $1 million and they can grow. And then this will be the next unicorn. Do that math for yourself and then show investors that you can do that math. And then guess what? You will get a lot of credibility, and attention when you're doing your fundraise. And I'm talking from serious investors. Most friends, family, and quote fools, most people don't know how to, look at financial projections, right? They just go, oh, you mean you're going to make $10 million? Great, I'm in, type thing. Yeah, take that money. Make sure, don't invest money you cannot lose, right? And make sure you pick, your friends and families to invest properly, but do that math, and then you can learn how to start to do projections. All right.